Let me ask you a question, guys. Have you ever wanted to see a film in which old-time medieval witches of different types are just slaughtered with modern machine guns and crazy types of improvised weapons built out of modern machine guns and just a total gore fest of witches being slaughtered in gruesome ways as large caliber bullets just rip them apart? If you're looking for that type of film, then you're in luck because this episode of Rotten Reviews is going to focus on the 2013 film Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters. Wow, it sounded so good on paper, but it wasn't. It has a 15% on the tomato meter and a 53% on the audience score. It is completely rotten. It has 98,586 audience reviews, so it's certainly a relevant film today in December of 2019. And yet, I just don't understand how it gets 53%, how the number is that high. In my estimation, a more fair number would be about 33%, 23%, something along those lines. For some reason, people just wanted to see medieval witches slaughtered by machine guns. And while that sounds kind of goofy, it sounds like it'd be fun in some kind of parody or comedy. This isn't a parody. It's not a comedy. This movie wants you to take itself 100% serious. And I'm just here to say that it completely fails before it even gets to any witch hunting. It fails just on the setting alone because, Hansel and Gretel, this is a medieval fairy tale. Maybe it's even older than medieval times, but it is a fairy tale that most modern audiences would expect to be set in medieval times. And yet, in this medieval setting, you have modern stuff going on. You have modern weapons technology. You have modern slang, modern vernacular, modern swear words. You have teenagers talking like modern teenagers, and etc. And it's very strange and cringeworthy. And the film actually has narration, like kind of a little plot opening, giving you some background that's done graphically. And it could have been done by using scraps of ancient text that could have shown you things. But nope, they chose to use like newspaper clippings to have a montage of newspaper clippings that would go across the screen and show you some setup for their background of hunting witches, what was going on in the setting. I'm sorry, but just like modern machine guns don't belong in the medieval period, neither do newspaper clippings made on printing presses. This movie has so much of that going on, it's just completely a complete fail right off the bat. I mean, I couldn't even dismiss that and get into it because it's not a parody. It's not done like a parody. Now, if this was done in a comical way, I could have been all for this type of weird anachronistic stuff going on, but it's not. It wants you to take all of this 100% seriously, and it just doesn't work. You've got elements from, Harry Potter, you've got elements from the Matrix movies, you've got elements from Western movies, and you've got modern machine guns with modern ammunition, and you've got like technology that even by modern standards is better than ours. And it's just ridiculous. Hansel and Gretel can piece together all this modern technology to hunt witches. It's completely stupid, and it would have worked as a parody or a satire, but it's supposed to be taken serious, and that's why I say I can't believe this has a 53%. It should have a 23%. But let's get right into the audience reviews and find out who agrees with me. I'm going to skip 5 and 3-star reviews because I'm sorry, that's just not believable. I'm looking for a real review here, and so my first review is going to be from November 18 of 2019, about a month and a half ago. 1.5 stars. How does this even get made? Well, that's a good question. I don't know how it gets made. I didn't see this when it came out on in the theater, and I didn't see this when it came out on home video, and I was just busy doing other things. I was traveling at the time, and so I never got a chance to see this. And then, surprise, surprise, a few days ago, it just popped up on HBO, and I happened to be able to DVR it. And guess what? I'm not happy that I saw it. I'm happy that I get to talk about it. But, you know, before I saw this, I was kind of disappointed that I hadn't gotten to see it because I didn't know that much about it. I just knew that it was probably something I would like. And, you know, I never had a chance to get to see it. And I was really disappointed, and I'm just shaking my head. How does this get made? I don't know. I asked myself the same question. This movie has Jeremy Renner. We know him as Hawkeye in the Marvel films. He's been in a lot of other things too. I saw him for the first time, I believe, in the movie where he was a bomb disposal or ordnance disposal soldier in Iraq, and that was the Kill Locker, I think, or the Hurt Locker. He was great in that. He was great in the Marvel films. He didn't have the most prominent role, but he was believable as an action hero in the MCU. And then he's in this, and I'm just shaking my head like, what was he thinking? And he's starring alongside Gemma Arterton. She's not as well known as him, but I've seen her in a lot of decent movies too. And also Famke Janssen. Famke Janssen is like kind of a throwback to the 90s. She was more popular. I mean, she showed up in the X-Men movies as the Phoenix. And, you know, she has good movies and bad movies. She's been in a lot of B movies. She's been in other movies that I've, you know, talked about on Rotten Reviews because they're rotten. But, you know, she's not like the make or break on this. None of these actors or actresses are the make or break points of this movie. They all perform like pretty much as they should be. But the script is just so stupid, and it doesn't matter how their performance came across. They're just wasted on this film. I guess they got paid, but I don't know if they realized how bad this would really turn out. 87 minutes on the runtime. Thankfully, it's short. It feels longer, though, because it's just kind of boring to watch all this witch slaughtering going on. It becomes kind of boring to see after it just goes on and on. But it is a short actual run time, even if it doesn't feel like it was. So I don't know. They did minimal work and got paid. So for the actors and actresses, I guess it was just a forgettable thing to collect a check. But how does it get made? I don't know. I don't know who thought that this would be popular because it's not funny. It doesn't have the humor that would be required to with all this goofy stuff going on. Let's see, 2.5 stars, October 7, 2019. The problem with Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters is that it doesn't know its audience. The R-rated content just doesn't seem right for the silly premise and material. Additionally, the gadgets and weapons feel like something out of a futuristic action flick. I like the look of the witches, though, and there are some enjoyable moments. I don't think it's a good movie, but I also didn't hate it as much as I thought I was going to. Well, it's not just that they're using futuristic gadgets that are even too futuristic for a modern-day movie, but the things that the characters do don't make any sense. Like, a big part of this plot hinges on the fact that Hansel and Gretel, despite growing up and having quite strong memories of this house they grew up in on the edge of this village, when they're adults, when they're in their 20s and 30s, they return to this house, and yet they don't know it's their old house from their childhood, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, somebody else, a witch character, has to explain to them that it's their house. Even when they're inside of it, they don't recognize it. It doesn't make any sense, and that's the whole plot has to hinge on this, and it's a complete logic fail. It doesn't make any damn sense. And the big bad witch, played by Famke Janssen, her role in the plot doesn't make any sense. Her motivations don't make any sense. The whole plot wouldn't even have happened without, number one, Hansel and Gretel not remembering, not recognizing the house they grew up on, or even the village they grew up near. Or, I mean, that makes no sense. How can you not even recognize the damn village that you grew up outside of? But in any case, that's the number one thing that has to be there for this plot to work. And then the number two thing is that Famke Janssen's witch character has to like completely ignore that the one key thing that she needs to get her power, and the one key thing that could threaten her power, is right there in that house the whole time, and she knows it's there, but just chooses for whatever reason to ignore it, to not go into the house to retrieve this book. Big fail there. Also doesn't make any sense. So these are just the two big plot problems that the whole plot needs to work. that are completely illogical, and it's just a whole lot of killing witches with crazy gadgets. And no logic to this whatsoever. But I will give them credit for having the witches an inventive, having the witches be inventively nasty and different, and various types of witches that we hadn't seen before. Not necessarily the powers they had, but just their physical appearance and their characteristics. Very original, very nice. It's just too bad nothing else made sense, that all of this, practical effects of the witches and whatnot, which it looked like they were largely practical effects, is just wasted on such a stupid script. Stupid script. Let's continue on. 1 star, August 11, 2019. Not really a passable fantasy film with steampunk elements. Hansel and Gretel 2013 fails to deliver enough of anything to make it any worthy to check out, despite having a decent team of cast. Yeah, it's not worth anything because it's just so damn stupid. 1 star, August 6. One of the worst films I've ever seen. I agree. If I have to do a star on this, I have to say I'll give it 1 star. And the only reason I'm giving it 1 star instead of half a star is because I'm giving them credit for the inventiveness of the witches, of the costume design, etc. For nothing else, though. As far as like the combat with the witches, well, let me just tell you, that's a fail. Putting this in half a star territory would be the fact that the witches can somehow fight like martial arts masters out of The Matrix or out of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Just by the fact that they're witches, they have this fighting skill. It's completely stupid. Makes no sense. And, I would normally say this is half a star, but I'm giving it the full star because I think the actual, as goofy as some of it was, the actual inventiveness of the witches themselves, of their physical appearances and whatnot, it's enough to give this a full star. They did that part right. 2 stars, July 20. Not a lot of substance to this movie. Pretty bland movie that should have went straight to DVD. Well, it definitely feels like a movie that was designed for the Sci-Fi Channel. Just the way it was shot, just the lighting, the camera angles, the way that, the costuming, the things inside the medieval village, the way that was done, the atmosphere. It felt straight up like something the Sci-Fi Channel did as like an in-house production. I'm not saying that's what made it bad, but it felt like that, like this was designed for the Sci-Fi Channel and not for theatrical release. It did not feel like something that should have been released in the theaters. And wow, if I had seen this in the theaters, oh wow, I would have been so upset at even paying $10 to see this in the theaters. But in 2013, it would have been more than $10. But even $10, I would have been upset. And then I had to pay for popcorn and drinks. So maybe I spent like $20 to $30. And then I saw this. Oh, wow. I would have been upset. 2 stars, May 16. An R-rated fantasy that looks like a mediocre setup than any fantasy films you would expect. This one doesn't stand out being in a different direction. Yeah, mediocre. And I'll say the actual CGI powers that the villain witch, Famke Janssen's witch character had, her actual lightning power looked really cheesy, like they didn't have the budget for proper CGI electrical effects, and it looked like also something that even the Sci-Fi Channel has done better. So again, mediocre is completely right. It's an accurate description. March 27, 3 stars. Glad I watched it. Probably will not watch it again. Yeah, I'm glad I watched it just so I can talk about how bad it is. Otherwise, if I didn't have a purpose for watching this, I'd be upset. If I tried to actually find entertainment in this, I would have been upset for the waste of time. April 23rd, 2 stars. Stupid waste of a movie. Completely agree. Let's see, 3 stars, January 11th, 2018. We're back almost a year now. I hated this movie the first time I watched it. Then the second time it was a lot better than the third. I actually enjoyed it. Hansel and Gretel are nothing special in this film, but the creative appearance of the witches and the plot saves everything else. Well, like I said, the creativeness of the witches themselves, the appearance of the witches, that was fantastic. But everything else was shit. Everything else was shit. I mean, there was so much stuff thrown into this movie that didn't belong in that setting, and it was supposed to be serious. If this had been made into a parody, a spoof, a comedy of some sort, it could have worked. But Nope, it's supposed to be serious. We're actually supposed to believe that, you know, modern machine guns existed in medieval times. So did modern revolvers. So did shotguns. So did double barrel sawed off shotguns. Really, that we're supposed to take that serious, along with witches riding brooms and etc. I just don't know what to say. I just don't know what to say that I haven't already said. 2.5 stars, January 5, 2018. Strengths, I appreciated the different take they went with on such a timeless story. Seeing the different interpretations on stories like this are always fun. Jeremy Renner, Hansel, and Gemma Arterton, Gretel, played well off each other and looked like they were having a blast. The action scenes are quite good and the effects are great. Several things looked way better than I expected. There's a lot of gore, which helps it stand out from other adaptations of this story. I also dug the twist on, well, they've gone on a lot in this paragraph, but I guess they didn't mind that modern machine guns and shotguns were in medieval times, or newspaper clippings, or file protectors, or filing cabinets, or I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it's just stupid. As far as like the action being good, no, it was only good in the maybe if you're judging it from a Sci-Fi Channel point of view, okay, passable. But from a theatrical release, the action was nothing special. It was kind of disappointing. Let's move on. 2 stars, November 14, 2017. Fable Tale of Hansel and Gretel turned into a feature film co-written and directed by Tommy Wirkola, starring Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton as the title characters, as they become adults paid to hunt witches who pose as ordinary human beings when they stumble into a small village that has a problem of missing children. You know, this small village they stumble into where the story takes place, that's their village that they grew up in, and that's their house right outside the village that they grew up in. But the plot requires them to just forget that they ever grew up in that village. What? That's like, I grew up in, around the Seattle, Washington area. If you were to drop me into, say a suburb of Seattle, do you think that I could be there a few days before without realizing I was in Seattle? That's completely stupid. I just don't even know what to say. 1.5 stars, October 14, 2017. I was waiting in anticipation for this movie for about 3 years and a half, and watching it worth all the hype in the world. It disappointed me very much. I really disliked this movie. I was bored. I thought it would have more action and more of a story. Jeremy Renner and the other girl were trying their best, and they were okay. Not exceptional, of course, but just okay. I wanted more from this movie. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I was thinking this would be good too, something I would enjoy, and wow, was I disappointed. I'm just glad I didn't pay money to see it, is the thing. You know, what do I have on my list? I almost forgot. Um, you know, there's another thing that appears in this movie. The character of Hansel, he's got a problem. When Hansel and Gretel were taken into the witch's cottage, just like the actual original fable, where the witch is in the gingerbread house made of candy. Well, in this version of the story, they're taken prisoner by the witch when they're kids, and the witch feeds Jeremy Renner's character with too much candy, and that gives him diabetes, which in the movie they refer to as the sugar sickness. And Jeremy Renner periodically has to inject himself with insulin by some crude mechanical syringe that he got from somewhere, and insulin that he gets from somewhere. And this is in the medieval times that he needs to inject insulin, and usually chooses to inject the insulin in his thigh for some reason before he goes into combat. So yeah, he's got insulin, or he's got the sugar sickness, he's got diabetes, and he's injecting himself with insulin periodically, and that's supposed to factor into the story. I don't know why this is in the story, because it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. It doesn't make anything happen in the plot, but it's in there, I guess, to set him up as a character. We're supposed to know that he needs insulin because the witch fed him too much candy as a kid, but he was only a prisoner of the witch for maybe, I don't know, a day or two, but somehow that was enough to give him diabetes. And then, of course, just like everything else in the film, along with the modern machine guns, of course, if you have modern machine guns in the Middle Ages, why wouldn't you have insulin, right? That makes sense. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. 2 stars, September 3rd, 2017. So we're back 2 years in time now. It went from boring to bad in a sad way when the giant started smashing heads. Yeah, there's a giant in this. There's a giant that looks kind of like Shrek, a really ugly, brownish, dirty version of Shrek. He's not green, but otherwise it could be Shrek. And he's kind of like the Hulk. He lumbers around like the Hulk, a bad version of the Hulk or Shrek or a combination, but he's not green. And he's in service. He's required as a troll. He's a troll. He kind of grunts and speaks a little bit and says that he's a troll. And he's required to help witches. That's part of this fable. And at the end of this, Hansel and Gretel bring him aboard their team, and the end of this movie is them hunting witches. Hansel and Gretel are hunting witches at the final, near credit, the very end of this thing. They're hunting witches, and they have this troll with them that helps them hunt the witches, and they're like making one-liner jokes to each other while they hunt the witches, and it's really stupid, and the one-liner jokes aren't even funny, and it's completely cringe-worthy stupid. It's more stupid than even all the other stupid stuff that came before. It doesn't stop being stupid all the way through this film. You think it's going to let up. You know, you would think that there would be one scene in this movie that wasn't stupid, but I'm sorry, the stupid just never stops. It just continues all the way until the credits, take over. And we have 2 stars from February 23rd, 2017. A few years ago, Hollywood had been so keen to make these fairy tales into unconventional action movies, entertaining only to some extent, but pretty much that is it. It's only entertaining if you can, try to see it as a comedy, but it's not funny. It's just like the worst type of fairy tale. Why would you take a fairy tale and put modern stuff into it, like modern weapons and insulin and trolls and witches? And I'm surprised like vampires and mummies and stuff and Dr. Frankenstein didn't show up. I mean, it's a complete fail. I'm still just wondering what the hell the purpose of this thing was. November 2016, 1 star. Oh boy, this did not look good going in, and I was right. This is a strange meshing of modern weaponry and old-time fairy tales. The classic charters of Hansel and Gretel grow up to become bounty hunters of witches and monsters. They are equipped with machine guns and elaborate gadgets. There is part of me that wants to take it for what it is and enjoy over-the-top explosive action mixed with magic. This could actually work, but the movie does not deliver those kinds of fast-paced thrills until late in the... Yeah, you could kind of say that the big action scene at the end where they slaughter a whole bunch of witches with machine guns, it could kind of work if the comedy had been there, but it's also a fail. There's very little redeeming stuff here. Maybe there's something redeemable in that, but it's just not set up enough, and there's no laughs to be had despite their one-liner jokes every once in a while that are just totally stupid and flat. Just really bad all the way around. 1 star, August 24th, 2016. Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters is a disappointing film. It is about Hansel and Gretel, who are bounty hunters that track and kill witches all over the world. Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton give horrible performances. The script is badly written. Tommy Wirkola did a terrible job directing this movie. I was not impressed with this motion picture. Yeah, he probably shouldn't. I don't know this director, but he probably shouldn't get too much work because this is really regrettable. This is not something you wouldn't want to hire a director with this movie on his resume. I wouldn't. Not if I had any choice in it. Let's go to my list here and see what other crazy stuff I've forgotten to mention. There's a record player, an old-time phonograph, the type that Thomas Edison invented in the 19th century. Or maybe it was the 20th century. Either way, you've got your old-time phonograph record player. And guess what? Hansel and Gretel happen to be carrying one of these around too, and they kind of they've pieced it together out of medieval technology, and they use it to attract witches to a clearing. They kind of bait and kill witches. They attract witches to a dummy dressed up like a child in a clearing, and they play children's voices from this phonograph. Yeah, so we have phonographs back. Edison's phonograph is back in the Middle Ages too. Forgot to mention that part. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, the bird noises. It doesn't matter if you're in the forest during the day, you're in the forest at night, or somewhere in between. It really doesn't matter. This film doesn't let up with the bird noises. There are continuous bird noises. If you're walking through the forest, you are like hearing 5, 6 varieties of birds squawking at you at one time continuously. They do not let up. This continues on through the night with nocturnal birds added to the bird noises, and it's completely weird. This is the loudest, birdiest forest I've ever heard of in all my travels. You don't have one quiet moment here. It's just continuous squawking and screeching birds at all times. What's going on in this fairy tale setting? I don't know. I don't remember Hansel and Gretel, the fairy tale, being all about birds. There's nothing about birds that features in the plot, yet all you hear are these squawking birds continuously. It's very strange and it's over the top. Whoever the director was, he had a thing for bird noises and he just pumped in the bird noises. 2 stars, August 14th, 2016. So we've jumped back more than 3 years now on this review. This was pretty hilarious. It's cheesy and ridiculous, but entertaining too. No, I'm sorry. You're contradicting yourself. You've given it 2 stars. That's a poor movie. You're saying it's cheesy and ridiculous. Cheesy, maybe, but guess what? This isn't funny enough to be entertaining. Like, if this had been written as a parody, it would have been funny. But it wasn't. It expected you to take this 100% serious, and that's a complete fail. So I say 1 star maximum here. Maximum 1 star. 2 stars, July 16th, 2016. A nice alternative idea with some good moments. However, the CGI feels lacking and amateurish in some scenes. It could have been a lot better. Also, after the plot finishes, there's a brief action scene before the credits with much better effects and a glamorized style than anything in the main part of the film. What they're talking about is that it's almost an end credit scene where Hansel and Gretel and their troll friend, they are hunting witches. And yeah, there's a lot of effort put into that to show them kind of after the main plot finishes, they're continuing their adventure. And you almost get the sense they were trying to set up a sequel, but there's no way. My God. If this director thought this was worthy of a sequel, he was setting it up for that. I mean, can you imagine the next movie opening with these 2 characters and their stupid troll friend and they're hunting witches, and it would be all downhill from there, and this thing's already at the 1 star, half star level. Wow, I just can't believe anybody would have who wants to step up to the plate and sink about, I don't know, $50 to $80 million into a guaranteed loser. Go ahead and make a sequel to this. Be my guest if you've just got that kind of money to throw away. Half a star, July 14, 2016. Really, really bad. Yes, I agree. 1.5 stars, June 29th, 2016. Not a bad movie if you don't think logically. That's what I did, and it kind of ruined the movie. Some people may not know what I mean or talking about. A witch is not a witch by blood, but by practice. Gretel would have had no power since she wasn't a practitioner of magic, and by that thought, the movie was a flop by my point of view. Wow, this reviewer is kind of, he's bringing an interesting problem out with this film. He doesn't have a problem with the other stuff. His problem, this reviewer, is that it's revealed that the reason that witches can't, their magic doesn't affect Gretel, she's invulnerable to a witch's magic, is because she actually turns out to be the daughter of a witch. So by blood, she's a witch. That also features in the movie why this troll character needs to protect Gretel. But yeah, this reviewer's bringing up the point that you're not a witch by blood, you're a witch by practice. So this is the least of the movie's problems. If that's the only flaw you found with this plot, then wow, why are you giving this 1.5 stars? You should have given it like 3 stars, because according to your review, this movie is just fine. It's just that one nitpick with the witch thing. Oh, please, that's not, I didn't think of that, but that's like the the tiniest part of this movie's problem. This movie has every other type of problem before we even get to any logic behind witches, if there is even logic behind witches, because remember, witches are fantasy creatures, so you're really pulling it out of your ass to say that's the problem with this movie. Let's move on to one more page here because I'm going to torture myself and find something here. Um, oh wow, I guess we're not going to find it. Look at this. We have pages of 4 and 5 star reviews here. 2 pages so far. What is going on? 3 pages. Okay, here's one. Half a star. June 29, 2016. Amazing movie. One of the best, but a half a star? What is going on here? Look at all these reviews. Look at these reviews. These in 2016, there was some kind of campaign to boost this movie up. You can tell. All through the summer of 2016, people were just talking this film up as the greatest thing of all. I mean, listen to this. Here's June 29, 2016, 4.5 stars. Great movie. It kicks ass. A lot of blood and messy shit. If you're a softie, don't watch it. If you like blood and guts and serious ass kicking, this movie is for you. Here's another one. 5 stars, June 29, 2016. Great movie, just not with the kids. Jeremy Renner and Gemma Arterton are excellent. Uh, wow. It's like you can see there was a campaign in 2016 to talk this thing up. I don't know if maybe this went on sale somewhere or something was going on, or maybe it's related to another film that was trying to springboard off this. I don't know what was going on, but this is clearly rotten. It's laughably rotten. And the only reason that audience score apparently is at 53%, that it's that high, is because somewhere around 2016 there was some kind of review bombing to boost this thing. That's the only thing I can figure, because this thing is completely rotten. It's not worth your time. And it's too bad. If you're thinking you can drink beer or get high, smoke a joint, and enjoy this to laugh at it, you won't be able to. It's just not that kind of film. It's just taking itself too seriously, unfortunately. So just skip it. Skip it, or you're going to really be sorry that you wasted your time. And I'm going to see you on the next episode of Rotten Reviews.